Hey guys, tonight we step softly into the fog-thick streets of Victorian London, the gaslights flickering like cautious fireflies above your head as you tug your shawl closer, feeling the damp brick walls breathing against your skin. The smell is coal smoke mixed with horse sweat, the distant rumble of carriage wheels bouncing off cobblestones as you wander toward your narrow boarding house room, eyes aching from too many nights without sleep. Your mind churns, twitchy and restless, clock hands ticking like a nagging insect you can't quite swat away, and even the softness of your pillow feels like an accusation against your inability to drift off. Victorian London is a city alive with insomnia, and you probably won't survive this place if you don't learn how to fall asleep eventually, though at least you'll look fashionable while trying, in your high collar and woolen layers. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're here, post your location and local time below. I always love seeing where in the world you all are drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge past shuttered shop fronts, the scent of warm bread from an early bakery momentarily comforting, and you catch the faces of others under street lamps, hollow-eyed and alert despite the hour. Historians still argue whether the Industrial Revolution made sleeplessness more common or simply more visible, as people migrated to cities and could no longer sleep with the rhythms of dawn and dusk like their rural grandparents. Some say the constant noise, bells, hooves, steam whistles, kept people awake. Others claim it was the new anxiety of clock time, wage labor, and factories that splintered their rest. You pause at a lamppost to watch a thin cat slink across the alley, pause silent, and in that moment, you realize you're not alone in your insomnia. Records from the time show that countless Londoners wrote about lying awake, listening to the muffled cries of drunks, the clatter of carts, the cough of a neighbor in the thin-walled tenements, unable to settle even when exhaustion pressed on their eyelids. This was not the hushed insomnia of a single sufferer, it was a citywide plague of wakefulness in a world transforming too quickly. A mainstream fact you notice is that street lighting, newly common in the mid-1800s, extended social life into the evenings and ironically created spaces for the sleepless to gather, pacing or gossiping under the lantern glow instead of lying restless in darkened rooms. Some found comfort in this, others, a bitter confirmation that night no longer meant quiet. Yet you also hear the fringe tidbit of the nightwalkers who believed moonlight itself could drain your energy, warning each other that the pale glow made your blood thin and your dreams vanish. A neighbor might knock on your door to remind you to close the curtains against moonbeams to avoid the wasting sickness that came with too much night exposure. You pass under a flickering gas lamp, the hiss of the flame like a living breath in the fog, and you see an elderly man clutching a pocket watch, tapping it every few seconds as if by force of habit. Another sign of Victorian insomnia, the obsession with timekeeping. Small clocks ticked in every room, and watches became a symbol of respectability even for those who could barely afford bread. You imagine the anxiety of hearing your pocket watch tick as you lie in bed, every second a reminder that dawn is coming and you haven't yet fallen asleep. Your feet carry you further, past a row of brownstone houses where dim candlelight glows through curtains. In one, a young maid lies awake, fearing she'll oversleep and miss the morning bell, costing her the job she desperately needs. In another, a middle-aged lawyer stares at the ceiling, replaying the day's court arguments in his head, unable to quiet the anxious whirring of a mind that never stops calculating. You walk slowly, the fog curling around your boots, letting the rhythm of your steps match your breath, and for a moment, you imagine the hush before dawn, when even London's restless heart slows just enough for sleep to slip in like a forgiving ghost. The moon above is weak and blurred by soot clouds, but it lights your way as you finally turn back toward your room, where a lumpy straw mattress awaits, the promise of lavender and warm water somewhere in your near future if you can just make it through the next long hour. Your eyes close briefly, your mind cataloging the soft thuds of distant carriages, the occasional bark of a dog, and the click of a lamplighter's pole tapping glass as he extinguishes the last street lamps before sunrise. In this moment, you let yourself feel the shared weariness of an entire city that hasn't yet learned how to fall asleep in a world that never stops moving. And you take one slow breath, letting the cool night air fill your lungs, and as you exhale, you take your first step toward finding the strange, moonlit remedies that these restless Victorians turned to when sleep became the rarest currency in the dark. You push open your creaky door, and the faint scent of soot and damp wood greets you like a tired companion. Your boots leave a trail of London grime across the thin rug as you settle into your small room, candlelight flickering as you exhale the city's cold from your lungs. The boards overhead groan under someone else's pacing, a constant reminder that you're not the only one sleepless in this building. You reach under your pillow, your fingers brushing the scratchy linen until they find the small muslin sachet tied with a purple ribbon, the faint aroma of lavender drifting up to greet your nose. Victorians swore by lavender for sleep, stuffing it into pillows, sewing it into mattress seams, even crushing a bit into warm water before bedtime to soothe the nerves. You hold it up to your face, inhaling slowly, letting its soft, herbal scent quiet the street noise still buzzing in your ears. Historians still argue whether these lavender sachets actually had any effect on insomnia or if it was simply the comfort of ritual that allowed people to slip toward sleep. Was it the plant's gentle sedative properties, or the comforting reminder that you had done something, anything, to help yourself find rest in a world of ticking clocks and street cries? On your bedside table sits a tiny dish of lavender oil, a luxury for many in the city, sourced from Provence or English gardens, sold by the ounce at apothecaries in small brown bottles. You dip your fingers in and rub it behind your ears, letting the cool oil sink into your skin, imagining the fields it once grew in under a soft European sun. A mainstream historical fact, lavender was not just for sleep but for scenting linens, disguising the unpleasant aromas of urban life in rooms rarely cleaned and never fully aired out. You crawl onto your mattress, pulling the rough blanket around your shoulders, and close your eyes, trying to focus only on the lavender scent, letting it carry you away from the echo of boots on cobblestones, the coughs of neighbors, and the low rumble of carriages outside. But the lavender sachet by candlelight is more than a sleep aid. It's a small rebellion against the restless noise of London. It's a pocket of countryside in a city choking on soot, a quiet reminder that something soft and alive can still exist in a world of iron and smoke. Your cheek presses into the pillow, the lavender scent rising with your body heat, and you remember a quirky tidbit you overheard at the market earlier that day. Some believed lavender under the pillow would invite prophetic dreams, allowing you to glimpse the future through the soft fog of sleep. Others claimed it would keep away bad spirits that hovered near the restless, waiting for the vulnerable moment when you drifted off to steal your breath. A joke bubbles up in your mind as you lie there, eyes closed, and you think, if ghosts are waiting to steal your breath, they're going to have to wait a long time tonight. You exhale a small laugh, the kind you can only manage when you're too tired to care who hears you. Your candle sputters as it burns low, shadows dancing across the peeling wallpaper, and you let your mind wander to the lavender fields outside Bath, where women in simple dresses and straw hats cut the stalks in summer, bundling them with twine to dry in lofts before being sent to London. You picture the dusty roads, the quiet, the bees moving lazily between purple rows under a cloudless sky, so far from your restless night in a cramped room with coal dust in the air. You roll onto your back, letting your eyes adjust to the dim light, candle shadows flickering like the gentle sway of lavender in a breeze you can almost feel against your face. In the silence between the creaks and sighs of the old building, you can almost hear the whisper of leaves, the hum of bees, the softness of a warm wind brushing against your skin. Lavender, they say, brings calm. It is a promise of peace in a world that rarely offers it freely, a rare moment where the night's darkness feels protective rather than heavy. You take a deeper breath, letting the scent anchor you as the last of the candle burns low, the wax puddling in the dish, the flame shrinking into itself before finally going out with a soft hiss. And in that darkness, you find a fragile moment of stillness. The city has not stopped, the clocks have not ceased their ticking, the restless shuffle of feet above your ceiling continues, but within this small, lavender-scented moment, you feel the edges of your wakefulness soften, just enough to let your body sink a little deeper into the mattress. Your hand drifts to the sachet again, feeling the small crunch of dried flowers, a soft rustle like dry grass under your fingers, reminding you that even in the deepest noise of the city, something small and gentle can survive and offer you a piece of quiet. You inhale again, letting the lavender pull you away from thoughts of the day, the errands left undone, the people you saw on the street, the coins you counted and recounted in your pocket. You let it remind you of simpler air, of softness, of a promise that even if sleep doesn't come easily, you are doing what you can to welcome it. And so, you close your eyes, breathing in the lavender, letting your tired mind follow its scent toward dreams, even if only for a moment. The morning never fully arrives in London, not with the coal smoke hanging low, turning dawn into a gray smudge across cracked windows. You sit up on your straw mattress, the lavender sachet dropping to the floor as you rub your eyes, the scent lingering faintly on your fingers. Your body aches from the lumpy mattress, your mind groggy from another night spent somewhere between sleep and restless waking. Victorians were no strangers to this kind of exhaustion, and many turned to small glass bottles lined up neatly at the apothecary for help, tonics promising dreamless slumber or restoration of the nerves. Some of them worked, but many of them were sugar water tinted with herbs and alcohol, a comforting placebo at best. You pull on your boots and coat, stepping out into the street to visit one of these shops, the fog rolling around your ankles like a curious cat as you move toward the promise of relief in the form of Victorian patent medicines and laudanum sips. A mainstream historical fact, Laudanum was a common fixture in Victorian medicine cabinets, a mixture of alcohol and opium that doctors and mothers alike used to soothe everything from teething pain in infants to the gnawing ache of insomnia. You imagine the glass bottles with their ornate labels and the heavy liquid within, poured carefully by candlelight into a spoon before being swallowed in hopes of a few hours of heavy, dreamless sleep. You push open the door of the apothecary, the small bell overhead jingling, and the scent inside is a sharp blend of herbs, alcohol, and something sweet, almost like burnt sugar. Shelves line the walls, filled with glass bottles in every color, labels proclaiming nervine tonic and soothing elixir in looping, confident letters. The shopkeeper gives you a nod, adjusting his apron as you scan the rows of remedies, each promising to be the key to a night of rest. Historians still argue whether these patent medicines did more harm than good, considering their high alcohol content and reliance on narcotics to soothe the nerves. Some believe they offered a necessary escape in a world that offered little comfort, while others argue they fed an epidemic of quiet dependency, with many Victorian insomniacs becoming unknowingly reliant on nightly doses to find sleep. You pick up a small bottle, the glass cool in your hand, and read the label promising restoration of the vital spirits. A fringe tidbit you overheard once: some remedies included bizarre ingredients like lettuce seed extract, ground pearls, or even essence of skullcap, meant to soothe the mind. Others claimed the alignment of the stars played a role in the effectiveness of certain potions, encouraging buyers to take their doses only under specific moon phases. You imagine yourself back in your small room, the fire in your tiny grate flickering low, pouring a dark, bitter dose of laudanum into a spoon, watching it tremble as your hand hesitates, the knowledge of what it might do heavy on your mind. The warmth of it as it hits your tongue, the almost immediate softening of the world around you, the edges of your thoughts blurring, the ticking of the clock growing distant, like it's underwater. A joke drifts through your head: imagine paying for a good night's sleep only to wake up in the morning with a headache that needs another potion to cure. You can't help the quiet chuckle that escapes as you set the bottle back on the shelf, its contents sloshing softly, a small sea of promise for the desperate. You watch others enter the shop, a young seamstress clutching a few coins, asking shyly for a nervous tonic, her eyes rimmed with dark circles, an older man in a threadbare coat who requests laudanum in a hoarse whisper, looking over his shoulder as if confessing a sin. You see the shopkeeper nodding, measuring out careful doses, slipping the bottles into brown paper, each transaction a silent pact to ease the burden of another sleepless night. Outside, the fog presses against the windows, and you feel the cold seeping through the glass, reminding you that no potion can change the damp chill of a London dawn. But even so, the promise is there, a bottle of syrupy liquid held close, a fragile hope that tonight might be different. You leave the shop, stepping back into the cold air, the small vial of night tonic heavy in your pocket, a symbol of the thin line between seeking comfort and sinking into dependency. You walk the streets, the laudanum bottle clicking softly against your coins, a reminder of the quiet desperation that drives so many to these remedies. The city moves around you, chimney sweeps blackened with soot, carts rattling over uneven stones, a woman in a bonnet pulling her shawl tighter as she walks quickly past. Everyone is tired, you realize. Everyone is looking for something to ease the constant weight of wakefulness. You pause at a corner, pulling the bottle from your pocket to look at it again. The amber liquid glows softly in the gaslight, promising quiet, if not true rest. The scent of the cork is sharp, tinged with bitterness and something floral, and you wonder if this is what sleep smells like for many in London, a mixture of opium, alcohol, and a desperate hope for peace. And as you stand there, the morning still gray and the world slowly waking up, you slip the bottle back into your pocket, knowing that tonight, when the clock strikes midnight and your eyes refuse to close, you may reach for it, letting the warm numbness slide down your throat as you whisper to yourself that tomorrow, you'll try to sleep without it. You shuffle back toward your small room, the laudanum bottle await in your pocket as you pass coal carts and women scrubbing doorsteps, their sleeves rolled high to reveal raw, red skin from cold water. You notice how the fog clings to your coat, how the damp London air is a constant companion, even when you shut the door and try to leave the world outside. You set the laudanum bottle on your narrow mantel and glance at the chipped basin and pitcher in the corner, the water inside reflecting your tired face in the faint light. Tonight, you think, you'll try a different remedy before surrendering to the bottle, a moonlit lavender bath, the Victorian way, meant to coax your nerves into softness before sleep. Victorians believed in the healing power of a warm bath, especially when laced with lavender, rosemary, or chamomile. A mainstream historical fact: many homes lacked private baths, so people would haul heated water to small tin tubs by the fireplace or visit public bathhouses that offered the luxury of warm water for a few pennies. It was seen as an indulgence but also a remedy, a doctor's advice often including a warm bath and a quiet mind as a prescription for those afflicted with nervous sleeplessness. You fill your small basin with water warmed over the fire, steam rising like ghostly ribbons as you drop in the crushed lavender you purchased from the herbalist stall. The scent blooms instantly, dampening the room with a soft, herbal hush as the water swirls with tiny purple petals. You dip your hands into it, letting the warmth seep into your cold, aching fingers. Historians still argue whether these lavender baths truly calmed the Victorian nerves or whether the effect was simply the rare warmth in a cold, damp city. Did the lavender truly ease the mind, or was it the act of taking time to care for oneself, the steam rising in a quiet room, the flicker of the candlelight across water that allowed the restless mind to slow? You unbutton your coat and shirt, letting them drop onto the chair before rolling up your sleeves and leaning over the basin, scooping water to splash across your face and neck. The warmth clings to your skin, carrying the lavender scent, softening the grime and weariness of the day. You imagine the moon outside your window, full and pale, its glow slipping across the rooftops, adding its quiet blessing to this small ritual. A fringe tidbit you remember from a pamphlet: some Victorians believed bathing under moonlight enhanced the calming effects of herbs, aligning the body with the lunar rhythms believed to influence sleep and dreams. Others claimed that lavender's properties were strongest when harvested under a waxing moon, ensuring the energy of growth and calm would be strongest in each tiny purple flower. You lift your hands from the water, letting droplets fall back with soft plinks as you close your eyes, inhaling the herbal steam. The warmth seeps into your shoulders, your neck, your jaw, loosening the tightness you hadn't realized you carried. For a moment, you allow yourself to imagine that you are not here in this small, cold room but in a quiet countryside cottage, a lavender field just beyond your window, the breeze carrying the scent in through linen curtains. A joke drifts into your thoughts, and you smile. Leave it to the Victorians to find a way to make moonbathing sound like medical advice. You let out a small chuckle, the kind that bubbles up when you are half drowsy, the world softened by warmth and scent. You run your hands through the water again, pressing the warmth into your arms and chest, feeling the tension shift and slip away in small increments. The petals cling to your skin, leaving faint purple smudges like sleepy freckles across your forearms. You think of the women who gathered lavender in the countryside, hands stained with the plant's oils, laughter rising in the warm air as they tied the stalks in bunches, their work a rhythm of summer that echoed even in the coldest winter nights when these baths were prepared. You picture the men who visited bathhouses after long days of labor, paying for a few minutes of warmth and steam, closing their eyes and letting themselves forget, just for a moment, the relentless march of work and poverty. The water cools, and you splash your face once more, the scent now soaked into your skin, clinging to you like a soft promise. You dry yourself on a rough towel, rubbing your arms briskly until warmth sparks back into them, your eyes feeling heavier than they did before. You glance at the laudanum bottle on the mantel, its amber glow quiet in the dim light. Maybe tonight you won't need it. Maybe the lavender and moonlight will be enough to lead you gently into sleep. As you slip into your thin nightshirt, the scent of lavender still rising softly from your skin, you move to the window, pulling back the curtain to see the moon peeking through the fog. It hangs there, quiet and round, a watchful eye over a city that never fully sleeps. You let yourself breathe in the cool air that seeps through the cracks, letting it mix with the lavender warmth still lingering in your skin. And as you lie down on your bed, the straw mattress creaking under your weight, you let the memory of warm water and lavender follow you into the darkness, a soft shield against the restless churn of your thoughts. You close your eyes, letting the moonlight touch your face, letting the scent of lavender and the memory of warmth anchor you in this quiet moment, one small victory against the endless tide of sleepless nights. The lavender has settled into your skin by the time you turn on your side, your thin blanket pulled close against the damp that creeps in through the floorboards. The moonlight spills across the room in a pale stripe, catching on the glass of your laudanum bottle, which now seems to watch you from the mantel with quiet patience. You try to find comfort in the warm weight of your limbs, in the lavender that clings softly to your hair, but your mind is already pacing the room, listing debts, remembering the coughing of a neighbor through the thin wall, replaying the rattle of carts in the streets below. You open your eyes to the dark, tracing the cracks in the ceiling you have memorized night after night. Victorians understood this type of restlessness, the inability to shut off one's thoughts even when the body ached for sleep. A mainstream historical fact. Physicians of the time diagnosed many cases of nervous sleeplessness in those suffering from what they called overwork of the mind. They advised sufferers to remove all sources of mental stimulation from the evening, no reading, no strong conversation, no intense thoughts before bed. But how could a clerk who feared losing his position, or a seamstress who feared missing her rent, simply stop worrying? You shift under your blanket, realizing that this Victorian advice to calm the mind before sleep may have worked for some, but for many, it was an impossible prescription. Historians still argue whether this cultural push to frame sleeplessness as a personal failure rather than a societal burden made insomnia worse for many. Was it the Industrial Revolution's noise, the crowded tenements, the anxiety of constant economic survival that truly kept people awake, not simply their overactive minds? Or was the Victorian belief in strict self-discipline part of the problem, turning insomnia into a nightly battle of willpower rather than an ailment to be addressed with kindness? You remember a fringe tidbit: some Victorians tried to conquer insomnia with the sleeping cap theory, believing that warmth around the head helped slow the mind. Knitted or quilted caps were pulled down over the ears, and some added lavender or hops sewn into the seams, hoping the scent and the gentle pressure would soothe the mind into silence. You imagine yourself pulling on a soft, lavender-scented cap, tugging it down to your eyebrows as you attempt to muffle the world around you. You lie back, imagining a soft gray cap on your head, pressing down the worries like a gentle hand, coaxing your thoughts to quiet. A small laugh bubbles up, a beanie for your anxieties. Victorian fashion never disappoints. You smirk into the darkness, feeling a small ripple of warmth from the absurdity of it. Outside, you hear the clip-clop of a horse pulling a cart through the fog, the sound hollow in the quiet street. You think of the lamplighters making their rounds, tipping their poles toward gas lamps to coax flames into life, the hiss of gas igniting, the small pools of light spreading across cobbled streets. You try to focus on these small sounds: the creak of wood as the building settles, the faint murmur of voices drifting up from the street, the soft whistle of the wind pressing against the window. Each sound is a reminder that you are here, in this moment, in this small warm patch of a cold world. You adjust your pillow, thinking of the Victorians who sought the perfect sleep posture as a cure for insomnia. Some medical pamphlets suggested lying on the right side with the knees slightly bent, the head propped at a gentle angle to avoid congestion of the brain. Others insisted on lying flat, arms at the sides, to encourage the most dignified slumber, even in sleep. You shift again, knees pulling up slightly, head resting on your forearm as you let the pillow cradle your neck. You think about the strangeness of a society that tried to prescribe the correct way to sleep, as if rest could be commanded into obedience like a soldier in formation. You watch the moonlight shift across the room as the clouds pass, silver brushing against the floorboards. Your eyes grow heavy, just for a moment, but a sharp worry jolts you: tomorrow's food, the rent due, the small cough you felt in your chest earlier that day. Sleep slips away again, like a shadow in the corner. You close your eyes, taking a slow breath, trying to follow the Victorian advice to empty your mind. But emptying your mind is like emptying a leaky bucket: every thought you toss out finds its way back in. You remind yourself gently that tonight, you will not battle your sleeplessness like an enemy. You will sit with it, lie with it, let it speak, then let it soften until it is only a whisper. The lavender, the warm water, the quiet room, they are all your allies, even if they can only offer small comforts. Outside, the world hums softly with the life of a city that never fully sleeps. A cat yowls in the alley. A carriage rattles past. Somewhere, a baby cries, a mother's voice murmuring comfort in the dark. You breathe in, letting the lavender warmth you remember from the bath spread through your chest, letting your muscles grow heavy against the mattress. You open your eyes for a moment, catching the moon as it peeks through the clouds, reminding you that you are not alone in this night. And you let your eyes close again, letting the scent of lavender and the hush of the world cradle you, reminding yourself that even if sleep does not come easily, you can still find rest in these quiet moments, in the rhythm of your breath, in the gentle acceptance of the dark. Your eyes blink open to darkness, a momentary confusion as you search for the moon stripe on the floor, unsure if you drifted off for seconds or minutes. The lavender scent still clings softly, a whisper on your pillow, but your mind is awake again, restless, turning over small fears like coins in your pocket. Victorians often faced these half-sleeps, the sort that left one hovering between dreams and the creak of floorboards, aware of every tick of the clock. A mainstream historical fact: in the 1800s, segmented sleep was common, with many people waking for an hour or two in the middle of the night. They called it the watch or the waking, often using the time for prayer, quiet reading, or simply lying still, waiting for sleep's return. Historians still argue whether segmented sleep was a natural pattern disrupted by industrial schedules or a sign of an anxious age grappling with endless work and city noise. Was this wakeful hour truly restful, a meditative pause in the night, or did it feed the cycle of insomnia in cramped rooms, echoing with neighbors' coughs and distant cartwheels on cobbles? You lie back, letting your eyes adjust, finding the outline of your laudanum bottle on the mantel again, a quiet sentinel, waiting. Your body feels heavy with warmth, but your mind flickers, restless. You think about what you could do in this wakeful hour: read a small tract by candlelight, hum a hymn under your breath, or simply listen. A fringe tidbit drifts back to you: some Victorians believed in counting sheep not just as a child's game but as a serious method to encourage the mind to slow. They would visualize a soft, repetitive scene, a gate, a meadow, a single sheep leaping, and count each one, letting the rhythm trick the mind into drifting. Others preferred to count prayers, each word a step toward rest. You close your eyes and decide to count, not sheep, but the small sounds around you. 1. The distant clatter of a cart. 2. The creak of wood as the wind presses against the building. 3. The gentle sigh in your chest as you exhale. 4. The flutter of fabric as your blanket shifts when you roll your shoulder. Your mind interrupts. Tomorrow's work, tomorrow's cold, tomorrow's hunger. You hush it gently, counting again, letting the rhythm fill the silence like a soft metronome in the dark. Your blanket feels softer tonight, or perhaps your body is too tired to notice its thinness as sharply. You imagine the Victorians who stitched these blankets by candlelight, every square patch repurposed from old clothes, each stitch a small act of hope for warmth in the winter months. You think about how some Victorians tried to calm their minds with warm milk mixed with nutmeg, believing nutmeg to be mildly sedative. A small smile lifts your lips. Victorian bedtime latte, anyone? The thought softens the tightness in your chest, reminding you that every generation has its small rituals, its attempts to coax the mind into stillness. You imagine, for a moment, that you are not alone in this small room. You see a woman in another house, across the city, also awake, also listening to the sounds of the night, lavender water drying on her skin, her mind hovering between sleep and the soft watch of midnight. You see a man down the street, sitting on the edge of his bed, sipping nutmeg milk, waiting for sleep to return. The city, even in darkness, is alive with these quiet moments, these small lanterns of wakefulness scattered across rooftops, waiting together, apart, for the hush to return. Your eyes close again, your breath evening out. You remind yourself that this wakeful hour is not your enemy. You let it sit with you, a quiet companion in the dark, neither fighting nor welcoming it, simply letting it exist. You shift, your cheek against the cool pillow, lavender still faint in the air. You remember how the Victorians valued patience, believing that sleep could not be forced but must be courted like a shy guest. You breathe out, letting your mind slow, letting your muscles sink into the mattress. A small, tired laugh bubbles up as you think, all this trouble, just to fall asleep, in a world that demands so much of us when we're awake. You let yourself smile, eyes still closed, letting that soft humor be the last ripple before stillness. Outside, the moon continues its slow arc, its light slipping further across the floorboards, drawing a pale path toward your bed. You let your breath match that slow, steady drift, letting each exhale lengthen until it feels like you are floating. You do not know if sleep will come easily, but you know you are here, in this quiet room, lavender clinging to your skin, the world hushed around you, waiting with you as the night continues its soft, patient vigil. Your breath moves softly in and out, and your eyelids flutter as the lavender remains, a faint halo around your senses. The city's sounds are distant now, muffled beneath the thick hush of midnight fog curling through narrow Victorian streets. You shift, your hand finding a warm patch under your pillow, and allow your mind to wander to the beds of others, stacked in boarding houses, in attic rooms above factories, in small terraced cottages with peeling paint. A mainstream historical fact: Victorian England saw an explosion in patent medicines promising to cure insomnia, with laudanum, chloral hydrate, and bromides advertised in newspapers as miraculous sleep potions for nervous disorders. Wealthier families purchased sleep tinctures in glass bottles labeled with flowing copperplate script, while the poor might scrape together coins for a few drops from the apothecary, hoping to drown out the world's endless demands for a few hours of unconsciousness. You turn your face toward the pillow, remembering the taste of those potions, bitter, tinged with the sharp tang of alcohol. A nightcap, Victorians called it, but often the cap was heavy with dependency, its comfort fleeting as dawn broke. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of opiates and sedatives made sleep easier for the working class or deepened the cycle of exhaustion and dependence that came with city labor. Was it a kindness in an unforgiving world, or another way for industrial society to wring more productivity from the weary bodies it refused to let rest naturally? A fringe tidbit flickers through your thoughts. Queen Victoria herself used chloral hydrate as a sleep aid later in life, prescribed by her personal physicians to help her drift off when grief or duty kept her awake. Imagine the Queen, in her ornate bedchamber, swirling her draught in a glass, seeking the same hush you seek now in your small, lavender-scented bed. Your eyes close, and you smile softly, thinking how even a queen must have felt the edge of fear in sleeplessness, the endless list of what tomorrow would demand. The same fear that now tugs gently at your mind, whispering of unpaid debts, of promises made, of the worry that your tired body will not be enough tomorrow. You shift your legs, pulling the blanket higher, letting it drape across your chest as you breathe out slowly, your breath matching the tick of a clock somewhere in the room. Tick. Breathe in. Talk. Breathe out. You imagine the hum of the Victorian city at night, the hiss of gaslights, the occasional rumble of a cart, the bark of a dog in a distant alley. You imagine the apothecaries' windows glowing faintly, blue bottles lined on dusty shelves, each promising relief to the desperate. You laugh gently, Victorian NyQuil, but with a punch, and your shoulders relax, the quiet humor pushing back the edge of your worry. You think of those who tried to resist these potions, determined to find natural sleep, relying on the lavender baths, the warm milk, the heavy sleeping caps pulled low. Some would recite psalms or lines of poetry to themselves, letting each word be a stepping stone into drowsiness, letting language lull them toward dreams. You turn onto your back, letting the pillow support your neck, your gaze finding the ceiling, where moonlight slants in a crooked rectangle. You mouth softly to yourself a verse you once read, letting the words echo gently inside. He giveth his beloved sleep. A small phrase, but it feels like a promise, a comfort you hold as you let your breath grow longer. Outside, the fog presses against the glass, softening the glow of the street lamps into halos. The world feels hushed, wrapped in cotton, and for a moment, you feel held by the night itself. You think again of the Queen, of factory workers, of seamstresses and clerks, of every Victorian soul who lay awake in the dark, longing for sleep, trying every potion, every prayer, every whispered promise to themselves. You realize you are part of that long lineage of sleeplessness, of hope, of tiny comforts clutched in the dark. You allow your breath to deepen, letting your ribcage rise slowly, fall slowly, matching the slow pulse in your temples. Your mind softens at the edges, thoughts drifting like feathers caught in the dark. The lavender has faded now into a gentler, background hush, a memory on your skin rather than a scent in the air. It is enough. You lie still, letting the hush fill the room, letting yourself exist without expectation. Sleep may come, or it may not, but in this moment, you are wrapped in quiet, your breath, your pulse, the hush of the Victorian night beyond your window, all holding you softly as the hours slide onward. You feel the hush thickening around you, your breath quiet as you shift under the thin blanket, letting the room settle again. The lavender is a faint echo now, but it has done its work, loosening your shoulders, reminding you that sleep is not a demand but a permission you grant yourself. A mainstream historical fact drifts in the Victorian era, the soundscape of the night was rarely silent. City dwellers fell asleep to the rumble of horse-drawn omnibuses, the hiss of gaslights, the sharp cry of newspaper boys calling the last edition before dawn. Even in the countryside, night brought the lowing of cattle, the restless cluck of hens, and the whisper of winds curling around stone walls. You turn your head, pressing your cheek against the pillow's cooler side, listening to your own version of that soundscape. A car hums far in the distance, a dog barks, your fan ticks faintly in its rotation. You realize that sleep often comes not in perfect silence, but in the comfort of small, repetitive noises that let your mind find a rhythm. Historians still argue whether the constant noise of Victorian urban life contributed to the age's wave of reported nervous complaints and insomnia, or if these complaints were simply part of a broader awareness of health as medical discourse expanded in the 19th century. Was noise the enemy of sleep, or simply part of the human condition in a world that was always alive, even at midnight? You let the question drift away like steam, your thoughts turning to a fringe tidbit. Victorians sometimes hired knocker-uppers, individuals paid to walk the streets in the pre-dawn hours, tapping on windows with long sticks to wake workers for their shifts. Imagine being the last to fall asleep, only to be the first to be woken by the soft tap-tap-tap against your window as the sky paled. You shift your legs again, a soft rustle in the dark, and you almost laugh, at least I don't have someone poking my window at 4 in the morning. The gentle humor makes your exhale longer, your body sinking a bit deeper into the mattress. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you imagine the fog rolling along cobbled streets, wrapping around the lampposts, the knocker-upper moving quietly, tapping at window panes, the echo barely louder than the breeze. You picture the glow of a gas lamp, the yellow light flickering across soot-streaked glass, the quiet cough of someone leaning out to nod before pulling back inside, starting the fire, boiling water for tea. You think about how the Victorians, despite their rigid schedules, had a slower rhythm at dawn, rising in a world that was still half dark, waiting for the coals to warm, for the water to heat, for the light to grow. There was no instant brightness, no blaring alarm, the day arrived like a slow tide, giving them a moment to stand by the window, hair mussed, shawl around their shoulders, breathing in the cold air before the bustle returned. You open your eyes again, the moonlight now lower on the wall, a thin strip, like a bookmark in the dark. You feel your chest rise and fall, slower, deeper, your body tired but calm, your mind soft around the edges. You remember how Victorians valued morning air, believing it cleansed the lungs and calmed the mind, and how they would often open a window briefly before dawn, even in winter, to let the cold, damp air swirl into the room for a moment. The thought of that bracing, damp morning air makes you curl your toes under the blanket, grateful for warmth. Your mind drifts to the small comforts they use to coax themselves back to sleep: the warmth of a hot brick wrapped in flannel placed at their feet, the faint taste of nutmeg milk, the scent of lavender water brushed onto their temples. Each one a gentle ritual, a whispered promise to the restless mind that sleep would return. You let your breath match the imagined rhythm of a clock in a Victorian room: tick, tock, inhale, exhale. You picture the faint glow of embers in a small fireplace, the slow crackle of wood as it settles, the soft rustle of a sleeping cat on the hearth. You remind yourself, gently, that it is okay to be awake, that even now, in this quiet hour, your body is resting, your mind is softening, your breath is enough. The goal is not to force sleep, but to let yourself be at peace in the dark, letting your thoughts drift like mist curling around lamplight. You let your eyelids lower again, the quiet hum of the world wrapping around you as you float in this hush, your breath a soft, even tide. No knocker-upper will tap your window, no cart will rattle down the street just yet. This hour belongs to you, to your quiet, to your breath, to your warmth. And so you remain, in the hush, letting the soft noises of your world become your lullaby, letting your mind rest gently, softly, patiently, waiting for sleep to come when it is ready. You roll your shoulders, your body heavy, warmth pressing you gently into the mattress as you let your breath guide you. The moon has shifted, its glow a sliver on the wall, and the hush of the room is thicker, softer, like layers of wool draped around your thoughts. You let yourself drift into the world of another Victorian night, where quiet and fear often dance together, especially for women who found themselves lying awake, staring at cracked plaster ceilings, wondering if sleep would ever come. A mainstream historical fact floats in: many Victorian women were diagnosed with female hysteria, a catch-all for sleeplessness, anxiety, restlessness, and any behavior that defied the strict expectations of femininity. Doctors prescribed everything from bed rest to strange mechanical treatments to endless rounds of tonics and teas, promising rest to women who could not find peace in the confines of their rigid worlds. You turn your face toward your pillow, letting the coolness under your cheek anchor you as you consider what it would have been like to live in a world where your sleeplessness was seen as a failing, a weakness that needed correction rather than comfort. The sense of frustration, the fear of judgment, the quiet rebellion of lying awake when you were supposed to surrender to gentle, domestic slumber. Historians still argue whether female hysteria was simply a medical misunderstanding of conditions like depression, anxiety, and insomnia, or a means of social control, forcing women to remain within narrow roles by labeling their distress as a medical problem to be subdued rather than heard. You feel a soft, dry laugh slip from your lips, Victorian men terrified of women having thoughts at 2 a.m., the quiet humor loosening a small knot in your chest. Your thoughts drift to a fringe tidbit: some wealthier Victorian women were encouraged to bathe in lavender water before bed to ease their nervous conditions, while poorer women might sew small lavender sachets to tuck under their pillows, believing the scent could coax their minds toward sleep. It was not always effective, but it was a moment of autonomy, a small ritual of self-care in a world that often left them powerless. You shift your legs beneath the blanket, feeling the light pressure of fabric against your skin, your toes curling and uncurling as your mind drifts toward the soft purple haze of imagined lavender fields, wind rustling through blossoms, the scent rising under a warm sun. You close your eyes, seeing a Victorian woman in a simple nightdress, hair brushed and loose, dipping her hands into a basin of lavender-infused water before bed, letting droplets slide down her wrists, breathing in the floral hush that reminded her of summer fields far away from city soot. She turns down her lamp, the flame shrinking before extinguishing, and lies back on a narrow mattress, pulling the covers up, waiting for sleep that may or may not arrive. You remember the letters you once read about, where women wrote to their sisters or mothers, describing how they lay awake at night, mind spinning with small rebellions, unfinished desires, words left unspoken during daylight hours. They counted the ticks of the clock, the creaks of the floorboards, the slow slide of moonlight across the room, willing themselves to find peace. You let your breath lengthen as you mirror that patience, reminding yourself that lying quietly, resting, is also a gift you give your body. Sleep is not a performance, it is a trust, a slow return to yourself. You open your eyes, blinking slowly, letting the softness of the dark envelop you as you imagine the hush of a Victorian bedroom, the faint scent of lavender, the heavy weight of quilts, the subtle creak of the bed frame as you turn. You think of how some women kept small journals hidden beneath their pillows, writing in the moonlight when they could not sleep, letting ink capture the restless energy that the world demanded they suppress. Words became a lullaby, sentences a soft rhythm that slowed the mind and gave shape to the formless anxiety of the dark. You let your own thoughts drift in sentences now, unhurried, like soft footsteps across a wooden floor, pausing, continuing, letting your mind wander without judgment. You exhale, long and slow, and let your shoulders soften further, your body melting into the mattress as you remember that the dark is not your enemy. It is simply a space to exist, to breathe, to let your mind and body find each other again after the noise of the day. You are not failing if you are awake, you are living, quietly, patiently, trusting that sleep will arrive when your body is ready, as it did for countless women before you, who lay in small rooms under quiet moons, breathing lavender and hope into the hush. The moonlight is almost gone now, leaving the room in soft darkness, the kind of dark that feels like a soft hand brushing hair from your forehead. You close your eyes, letting that quiet touch guide you, letting your breath deepen, letting yourself drift. This moment is yours, wrapped in the hush of the night, in the scent of lavender, in the promise that you are enough, even in sleeplessness, even in the waiting. You breathe in, slow and deep, letting the dark settle around you, as if the night itself were a quilt you could pull tighter around your shoulders. Your body feels heavy, the lavender memory lingering like a soft sigh as you let yourself drift into the quiet spaces of your mind. You imagine a cold Victorian room, frost creeping along the window panes, and you under blankets, clutching a warm brick wrapped in flannel at your feet, trying to find comfort in the cold. The fire in the grate has faded to a faint glow, the embers breathing softly, a red heartbeat in the shadows. A mainstream historical fact settles into your mind. In Victorian England, many households relied on hot water bottles, flannel-wrapped bricks, or heated pans swirled between sheets to warm beds before sleep. Coal was expensive, and fires were carefully rationed, so these small comforts became nighttime rituals, necessary for falling asleep in a damp, cold climate. You shift under your own covers, grateful for modern heating, for the simple warmth of your bed, realizing how easily you take for granted what would have been a luxury in the cold night of 1873. Historians still argue whether the damp cold of Victorian homes contributed to chronic health conditions, including the rise in what was called catarrh, persistent coughing and respiratory discomfort that, in turn, worsened sleep across the population. Was it the coal smoke, or the tight air of shuttered rooms that made sleep so elusive during those endless British winters? A fringe tidbit drifts into your thoughts. Some Victorians believed placing a bowl of water near the fireplace would add moisture to the air, helping with dry coughs and easing sleep. Others swore by sleeping with a sliced onion near the bed to ward off night air sickness, convinced the onion would absorb harmful vapors while they slumbered. You laugh softly, an onion dream catcher, the gentle humor warming the dark, a reminder that even the oddest rituals were often rooted in deep human need for comfort and control in a restless night. Your mind drifts to the steady rhythm of a ticking clock, the one reliable sound in a Victorian room, marking each passing second as you lay awake. Tick, tock, tick, tock. You imagine the quiet house around you, floorboards creaking as the wood contracts in the cold, the faint rustle of mice in the walls, the distant bark of a dog far down the lane. You let your breath match that rhythm, inhale, exhale, tick, tock. You feel your mind slow, your body warm under the covers, the hush of the night a cocoon around you. You close your eyes, picturing a young woman in a wool nightdress, clutching a flannel brick to her chest, shifting in bed, trying to find the warmest spot. She watches the moonlight crawl across the ceiling, listens to the sigh of the wind pressing against the shutters, counting her breaths to calm the restless spin of her thoughts. You let yourself join her, in that hush, in that cold room, in the soft rhythm of waiting for sleep to arrive. You are not alone in your restlessness, you are part of a long, unbroken line of souls lying awake, breathing quietly in the dark, hoping for dreams to come. You remember that sleep is not always immediate, and it is not a test you fail if it does not arrive on command. Even as you lie awake, you are resting, letting your body recover from the day, letting your mind process what it needs to release before you can drift. You shift under your blanket, finding a new position, your body grateful for the soft mattress beneath you, the gentle weight of your covers, the warmth that seeps into your bones, loosening the tightness in your shoulders. You think of how some Victorians would rise if they could not sleep, adding a piece of coal to the fire, heating a small pot of milk with nutmeg, sipping it by the glow of the embers before returning to bed. A quiet ritual, a moment of warmth and care, reminding themselves that sleeplessness is not a crisis but a gentle pause. You let your own breath slow again, your eyelids heavy, the dark comforting as you imagine the faint scent of warm milk, the soft crackle of coals, the warmth of a wool shawl around your shoulders as you drift back toward your bed. You remember, gently, that it is okay to rest in the dark, to let your thoughts wander softly, to give yourself the kindness of patience, knowing that your body will find its rhythm in its own time. The hush of the room holds you as you close your eyes, your mind softening, your breath steady, your body warm and quiet. You let yourself sink into that hush, into the warmth, into the quiet promise that sleep will come when it is ready. And so you rest, quietly, patiently, under the soft hush of the night, under the dark that comforts rather than frightens, under the warmth that reminds you that you are safe, that you are enough, that you can let go now, and simply breathe. You let out a slow breath, feeling the heaviness of your body pressing softly into the mattress, the edges of your thoughts blurring as you sink further into the quiet of the night. The air feels still, the darkness like a soft wave, comforting, patient, holding space for your mind to wander without pressure. The glow of the moon has faded further, leaving the room wrapped in the softest shadow, and you find yourself drifting into the world of Victorian folk remedies, where every sleepless night was met with quiet determination and odd, homegrown experiments to coax the body toward rest. A mainstream historical fact drifts gently into your mind. During the Victorian era, the use of herbal remedies for insomnia was widespread, with many families keeping dried herbs in small muslin bags or glass jars in the kitchen or bedside drawer. Chamomile, hops, and valerian root were among the most trusted, brewed into teas or placed in sachets under pillows, each promising to calm the restless mind and ease the body toward sleep. You adjust your pillow, letting the cool side soothe your cheek, imagining the warm, slightly bitter scent of valerian, the crisp, apple-sweet breath of chamomile rising from a steaming teacup held carefully in hands tired from the day. Historians still argue whether these herbal remedies truly helped induce sleep through physiological means or whether their effectiveness came from the comforting rituals themselves: the boiling of water, the steeping of herbs, the warm cup held close, the careful sipping in the hush of the lamplit dark. Your mind drifts to a fringe tidbit. In some rural Victorian households, hops were sewn into small pillows, believed to emit a calming fragrance that would lull even the most stubborn insomnia into submission. Mothers would tuck these pillows beside infants as well, hoping the scent would ease teething fussiness and restless nights. You smile softly in the dark, imagining a Victorian child cuddling a hops pillow like a tiny, slightly bitter-smelling teddy bear, while a mother sits close by, humming softly in the glow of a candle stub, hoping sleep would finally come for them both. You adjust your blanket, your toes curling and relaxing, letting your body find a new pocket of comfort as your mind drifts to the faint rustle of dried herbs in a linen bag, the soft clink of glass jars in a wooden cupboard, the hush of a kettle as it begins to boil. You let yourself see a young Victorian woman pouring steaming water over chamomile flowers, the golden liquid swirling in a ceramic cup, the scent rising like a soft promise in the cold air. She wraps her hands around the cup, bringing it to her lips, closing her eyes as the warmth seeps into her, the steam softening her breath, the hush of the room holding her as she waits. You, too, let yourself wait, allowing the quiet to be enough, allowing the pause to be comforting rather than frustrating. You remind yourself that rituals, tea, soft breathing, the comforting weight of blankets, are not wasted time but small kindnesses you offer yourself as you prepare for rest. You let your breath deepen as you imagine the warmth of the tea sliding down your throat, your body responding with a slow loosening of tension, a softening around your shoulders, a heaviness in your limbs that feels like permission to let go. The darkness feels gentler now, a space where you can rest without expectation, where even if sleep does not arrive immediately, you are still giving yourself the gift of quiet, of pause, of patience. You think of the old Victorian belief that the smell of freshly baked bread could help one drift into sleep, the warm yeasty scent calming the mind. Bakers, rising before dawn, would often speak of the strange peace that came in those quiet hours, the comforting rhythm of kneading dough, the promise of warmth, the hush before the world awoke. You let yourself imagine that warmth now, the scent of bread rising in a small kitchen, the quiet that blankets the room, the slow promise of a new morning that does not rush you but meets you gently, calmly, patiently. Your eyelids grow heavy, your breath even, your body warm beneath your covers as you remember that you do not need to force rest to arrive. You can simply be here, in this moment, in this dark, in this hush, letting your body remember how to let go, how to trust the quiet, how to welcome the softness that comes before sleep. You close your eyes, letting your mind drift toward dreams, letting your breath anchor you in the now, letting the darkness hold you softly, like the hush of a Victorian room lit by the last glow of the hearth. You are here, and it is enough. The hush of the night deepens as you settle further into your pillow, your breath slow, your mind drifting like a small boat on a dark, calm lake. The quiet around you feels thicker, softer, a comforting weight pressing you gently into your blankets as you allow yourself to continue wandering through the gentle absurdities and tender attempts of Victorian insomnia cures. A mainstream historical fact floats softly into your thoughts. Victorian physicians often prescribed warm milk infused with nutmeg as a sleep aid, believing the combination of warmth, fat content, and the mild sedative properties of nutmeg could quiet the nerves and soothe the restless mind. In many homes, a small pan would be warmed on the hearth in the blue hush of the evening, the milk gently stirred so it would not scald, nutmeg grated fresh on top as the final calming touch. You imagine the scent, warm, creamy, faintly sweet, with the soft, woody sharpness of nutmeg rising with the steam, and you let that warmth slip into your own breath, a cozy comfort that sinks into your bones. Historians still argue whether the sedative properties of nutmeg in such small amounts were enough to make a measurable difference, or whether the calm came from the slow ritual of warming the milk, the quiet stirring, the patient sipping in the hush before bed. A fringe tidbit drifts in some corners of Victorian Britain, people believed that rubbing nutmeg oil on the temples or even wearing a tiny nutmeg amulet could ward off headaches and ease a racing mind, helping sleep arrive. Nutmeg, exotic and precious, became both a spice and a quiet talisman against the exhausting churn of sleeplessness. You smile faintly in the dark, letting your body relax further as you picture a weary father in a woolen nightshirt, carefully stirring milk over the coals, adding a pinch of grated nutmeg, whispering to himself that tonight, surely, sleep will find him. You let yourself join him in that hush, in that quiet hope. You take a slow breath, letting your mind drift to the crackle of the hearth, the hush of the kitchen at night, the faint glow of embers painting soft shadows on the walls. You imagine yourself sitting there, the warm cup in your hands, the steam brushing your face, the scent of nutmeg calming your breath, the world slowing down as you sip. You let your shoulders relax, the tension melting as you remind yourself that sleep does not need to be chased or forced. It can be invited with softness, with warmth, with the kind, small rituals that tell your body you are safe. You remember how, in the cold stone houses of Victorian Britain, families would gather around the last glow of the fire before bed, sharing the warm milk, speaking in low voices, letting the quiet grow until the hush became a comfort rather than a fear. The hush became a promise. You feel your own hush now, the darkness wrapping you gently, your body heavy, your mind floating, as you let yourself simply be here, without expectation, without rushing, allowing the soft possibility of sleep to grow in the quiet. You let your mind wander to the simple, patient beliefs of the past, when people trusted that a warm cup of milk, a gentle walk around the garden under moonlight, or a few deep breaths by an open window could help the body remember how to rest. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't about the milk or the nutmeg at all, but about the permission to slow down, to pause, to trust in the dark as a place of rest. You let yourself take another slow breath, your eyelids growing heavier, your limbs sinking deeper into the mattress, your mind loosening its grip on the day. You imagine the warm milk in your belly, comforting, soothing, reminding you that you are cared for, that you are allowed to rest. You let your thoughts quiet as you picture the soft glow of the last candle in a Victorian room, the wax dripping slowly, the flame a small, brave light in the dark, and you remember that the darkness around it was never meant to frighten you, but to cradle you, to hold you in quiet safety as you drift toward sleep. You let your breath match the gentle rhythm of the dark, in, out, in, out. Your mind softens, your body heavy, your spirit calm. You remind yourself that there is nothing you need to do right now except breathe and let the hush be enough. Sleep may be near, or it may take its time, but in this moment, you are safe, you are warm, you are resting. And that is enough. The night feels softer as you breathe in, the hush around you growing thicker, a comforting quiet pressing gently on your shoulders as you sink further into the softness of your bed. Your breath, slow and warm, anchors you in this moment, letting the thoughts of the day dissolve into the darkness as you continue your slow drift through the gentle, peculiar landscape of Victorian insomnia cures. You let yourself drift into the realm of gentle movement, a technique many Victorian doctors quietly encouraged for sleeplessness, walking slowly in the cool air of the garden or pacing softly along a quiet hallway by lamplight to ease the restless body into readiness for sleep. This mainstream historical fact often appears in letters and diaries, where people speak of their sleepwalks, a practice of gentle, mindful pacing that calmed the nerves without exciting the mind. You imagine the soft scuff of slippers on old wooden floors, the faint creak of a loose plank, the hush of the garden with its damp earth and faint floral scents under the moonlight, the cold air brushing your face as you lift your eyes to the stars. Historians still argue whether these nightly walks truly aided sleep through the effects of light exercise or whether they simply provided a comforting ritual, a small moment of solitude and quiet to release the tensions of the day before returning to bed. A fringe tidbit drifts in, soft and peculiar. In certain Victorian circles, it was believed that walking backward around the garden 3 times under the moon could confuse troublesome thoughts that kept a person awake. While it sounds like a superstition you might see in a fairy tale, there are personal journals that reference individuals quietly shuffling backward in the moonlight, hoping to trick their sleeplessness into letting them rest. You let yourself smile softly, picturing a man in a long dressing gown and nightcap, carefully stepping backward around a small herb garden, the pale moonlight glinting on dew as he whispers, "Just let me sleep tonight." Your toes stretch, then relax, your shoulders loosening further as you imagine the hush of that moonlit garden, the cold air clearing your mind, the faint rustle of leaves, the softness of earth under your feet, the world holding its breath around you. You allow yourself to imagine joining that walk, barefoot on cool grass, the earth damp against your soles, the moonlight brushing your skin as you breathe in the crisp night air. You feel the stillness, the slowness, the patient hush of the world outside, reminding your body that it is allowed to slow, to soften, to prepare for sleep. You remember the way some Victorians described the night as a cooling of the mind, believing the cold air at night helped release heat and tension from the body, calming the blood and soothing restlessness. There is a quiet logic to it, the cold air, the hush of darkness, the softness of the world at night, reminding you to let go, to stop chasing thoughts, to be still. You let your breath deepen, imagining that cold air brushing past your face, clearing your mind, inviting your muscles to loosen, your thoughts to quiet, your spirit to rest. Your mind drifts to the creak of a garden gate closing gently behind you as you return indoors, your feet cold but your mind calm, your body ready to slip under warm covers, the darkness now a comfort rather than a restless waiting. You let yourself feel that now, the cool hush of the night around you, your body warm beneath your blankets, your breath slow, your mind soft, the darkness holding you safely as you prepare for rest. You remind yourself that you don't need to force anything, that rest is allowed to arrive slowly, softly, like the hush of a moonlit garden after a gentle walk, like the quiet that follows a deep sigh, like the softness that comes when you finally allow yourself to stop fighting the dark. You breathe in, then out, letting the quiet settle deeper into your body, the hush wrapping around you like a soft, cool cloak, reminding you that you are allowed to rest, to wait, to let go. Your eyelids grow heavier, your limbs warmer, your spirit calmer as you allow yourself to be held by the darkness, to trust that even in moments when sleep feels far, you are still resting, still caring for yourself, still softening into the quiet. And that, for now, is enough. You lie quietly now, your breath soft, your body heavy in the warmth of your blankets as the hush of the night deepens around you. Your thoughts slow to a quiet ripple, and you allow yourself to continue this gentle drift through Victorian sleep remedies, stepping softly into the next hush of history. Tonight, you settle into the odd comfort of gentle sound, a mainstream historical fact in Victorian homes, the use of gentle white noise or soft repetitive sounds to encourage sleep. In many middle-class and working homes, the ticking of a mantel clock, the steady hush of wind against old glass windows, or even the crackle of a slowly dying hearth were trusted companions in the darkness, believed to lull the restless mind into quiet. You imagine lying in a small bed, the heavy darkness broken only by the faint glow of moonlight through thin curtains, the slow, comforting tick-tock of a clock nearby marking time softly in the dark, the hush between each tick stretching out like a cradle for your mind. Historians still argue whether these repetitive sounds genuinely contributed to physiological relaxation or if they simply offered a familiar focus, a calming anchor in a world where nights could feel vast and uncertain, especially when you could not easily light a lamp without effort and expense. A fringe tidbit drifts in some parts of rural Victorian Britain, it was believed that placing a small bowl of barley near your bedside would attract the roaming night spirits that caused insomnia, luring them away from you so you could finally fall asleep. While you might not be scattering grains on your nightstand tonight, there is something gently funny about the image of someone muttering, "Here, take the barley and leave me alone," before curling up under scratchy wool blankets. You let yourself smile faintly as you picture a tired Victorian mother or father, placing that small bowl by the bedside, the darkness pressing softly against the windows, the only sound the slow tick of the clock, hoping that superstition or not, the barley might convince sleep to visit. You let your breath match that slow tick-tock, in, out, your mind gently focusing on the rhythm, letting the hush between each imaginary tick soften your thoughts, letting yourself be held in that rhythm. You remember the way certain rooms would echo faintly with the creak of old wood as the house settled for the night, the distant sounds of a neighbor's cough or a horse passing on a quiet street, each sound becoming part of the hush, a lullaby of life continuing gently even as you lay there, drifting, waiting, breathing. Your own room has its sounds, the soft hum of a fan, the distant hush of cars if you live in the city, the occasional pop of your house's wooden frame settling into the cool of the night. You let these small, steady sounds become your Victorian clock, your quiet companions as you rest. You take a slow breath, letting your limbs soften further, your shoulders drop, your eyelids grow heavier. You let the hush of your room become a cocoon around you, a soft darkness that asks nothing of you except to be here, breathing, allowing the slow drift of rest to come. You imagine yourself in a small Victorian bedroom, the thick darkness around you, the ticking of the clock like a heartbeat, the barley bowl on the nightstand catching the night spirits so they leave you alone, the faint crackle of the dying fire, the hush of your own breath joining the quiet. And for now, you let that be enough. You remind yourself that sleep does not need to be earned, fixed, or forced. It can arrive slowly, like the hush that follows each tick, like the quiet that comes after a sigh, like the stillness that slips in when you stop fighting the dark. You take one more slow, deep breath, letting your body grow heavier, your thoughts softer, your spirit quieter, as you settle further into the hush of the night, the rhythm of the darkness reminding you that you are safe, you are warm, and you are allowed to rest. You let yourself stay here, in this soft hush, without expectation, letting your breath carry you deeper, your mind quiet, your body calm. And that, tonight, is enough. Your breath is slow now, your eyelids heavy, the hush around you a soft blanket, as we move into this final part of our gentle Victorian journey together, allowing your body to sink, your mind to quiet, your spirit to soften into the darkness that holds you so carefully tonight. You let yourself drift back into a final, tender ritual of Victorian sleep culture, the moonlit lavender bath. A mainstream historical fact, Victorians, particularly in households that could afford it, often turned to warm baths scented with lavender, chamomile, or rose to calm the nerves before bed, believing the warmth and scent would help blood flow and ease the restlessness that so often accompanied long, dark nights. You imagine the warm water enveloping you, steam rising in the hush of a candlelit room, the gentle scent of lavender thick in the air, clinging to your skin and hair as you let your muscles loosen and your breath deepen. Historians still argue whether the oils themselves carried strong enough properties to induce drowsiness, or if it was the warmth, the privacy, the slow moments of self-care that told the body, it is time to rest now. A fringe tidbit drifts in softly. Some Victorian mothers would hang small sachets of dried lavender and chamomile near their children's cribs, believing the scent would ward off nightmares and keep the spirits of bad dreams away, letting the child sleep in peace. The sachets were often stitched by hand, the lavender gathered from gardens or small market bundles, tucked away in linen drawers or under pillows for a hint of floral calm. You let yourself smile softly in the dark as you picture the quiet hush of a small room, the gentle clink of a metal tub being filled, the scent of lavender mixing with the warmth, the steam softening the cold edges of a long day, the hush becoming thicker, softer, kinder. You let your mind join that hush now, your breath steady as you imagine the warmth of water around your limbs, the faint flicker of a single candle, the way the lavender scent seems to grow stronger with each breath, reminding you that you are here, you are safe, you are allowed to rest. Your body feels heavier, the warmth of the imagined water sinking into your bones, your mind softening with the scent, the hush of your room folding around you like steam as you allow yourself to let go of the day, let go of thoughts, let go of trying. You take another slow breath, letting your shoulders drop, your jaw unclench, your fingers uncurl, your feet relax, the hush thickening like warm water around you, inviting you to drift. You remember the small rituals we have walked through together, the warm milk with nutmeg, the quiet backward walks under moonlight, the slow ticking of a clock, the hush of lavender in the night air, the warm bath that soothes tired muscles, the soft flicker of candlelight reminding you that darkness is not something to fear but something to rest within. You let yourself hold on to this hush, this softness, this reminder that you do not need to fix anything right now, that your body is allowed to soften, your mind is allowed to quiet, your spirit is allowed to rest. You are allowed to rest. You take one last slow, deep breath as your mind quiets further, your limbs heavier, your spirit softer, the hush of the dark folding around you like the warm water of a lavender bath, like the soft night air in a moonlit garden, like the hush of the world when it is finally time to sleep. And you allow yourself to let go. And now, you let your breath become even slower, softer, longer, as the hush of the night wraps around you like a warm, comforting cloak. Let your shoulders drop, your limbs grow heavy, your eyes close softly, letting the darkness behind your eyelids become the gentle canvas where your mind can rest. There is no need to think, to plan, to fix anything. The day is done. You are here, safe, warm, held by the hush of the night. You let the faint scent of imagined lavender linger in your thoughts, like a gentle whisper reminding you that you are allowed to sleep, to rest, to soften. Your breath moves like a quiet tide, in and out, as your mind drifts further into the comforting hush, the darkness around you softening your edges, the warmth of your blankets reminding you that you are cared for, that you are enough. If sleep is near, let it come softly. If it takes its time, let the hush be your comfort. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on a dark river, floating gently, carried by the current of your breath, moving further and further into rest. You are safe here. You are warm. You are allowed to rest. Allow yourself to let go, to sink, to trust the hush of the night to hold you. Let your breath guide you deeper, softer, slower, until the world grows quiet, and you drift into sleep, the hush becoming your home for the night. Sleep well.